Now, a Bloomberg exclusive, as if Uber didn't have enough adversaries, concerned regulators, well-funded competitors, and now potentially a new threat, its own investor, Google. Here with more is Caroline Hyde. So, Caroline, how much do we actually know? So this is a nice Bloomberg exclusive, and we find out that Google is working on something that could rival Uber in basically hailing taxis with driverless cars.
Exactly. We understand Google is preparing a ride-hailing service all of its own. There's even been screenshots shown to Uber executives of it already working. Employees within Google are already able to use an app that they've developed themselves to share car rides. And what our story is saying is that this is a strategic move by Google, and they're likely to be in conjunction with the whole driverless car project that we've heard Larry Page speak at length about, and we've known that they've been embroiled in for a while. What's so fascinating is, of course, well, Google's via its ventures arm, its investment arm, they funded Uber to the tune of $250 million back in 2013. They then added to that funding back in 2014. And they supply them with technology. They supply Uber. Yeah. The drivers rely upon Google data, on Google traffic, on Google Maps, as indeed do us as passengers of Uber. So it's all very interlinked that suddenly we're seeing what has been the backer of Uber, potentially the company we all envisaged buying up Uber, and in fact even has someone on the board. The Google Chief Legal Officer, David Drummond, is on the Uber board. What we understand is that Uber's rather hoping he'll resign now because they're really worried about this.
Why? I'm trying to understand the motivation for Google doing this.
Yeah.
They've already got a ride-sharing service. It's called Uber.
Yeah.
Why do they need their own?
They've got other investors in that game, though. Maybe they're fearing that they won't be able to win that eventual battle.
Is Uber not doing a good enough job?
Well, this is the question, is it looking far enough? What already Google is hypothesising, and they've been at big conferences talking about this, do we need an Uber, do we need a taxi service at all? If we suddenly got autonomous vehicles,
yep,
you and I will just have a pooling experience. We won't even need a car of our own anymore. We'll suddenly just be able to hail a car that happens to be just cruising around without a driver, and suddenly we're all in a sharing economy. Now, has Uber got far enough in that vision to be along with that game plan? Interestingly, Uber itself is getting in on the Autonomous Act. They unveiled yesterday that they've got an agreement with Carnegie Mellon, an Uber Advanced Technologies Centre. Yeah. And they're going to be working on, mapping. So suddenly they're getting on Google's app. They're going to be understanding their own app data, their own traffic data, their own mapping data, but also on autonomous vehicles. Maybe Uber hasn't been thinking enough outside the box. They've been so busy fighting fires on their own doorstep, particularly in Europe, they're moving ahead of regulation already. Have they really seen where the future is? And the fact that we're not going to have car services, we're going to have, as we say, hailing apps, but for autonomous vehicles.
See, I'm not exactly, a visionary in terms of tech, but this sounds like a bus to me. A bus or a tram. It's just a smaller bus.
No, but it's more tailored, because everything is becoming increasingly bespoke, and this is effectively a bespoke bus. Yeah. But you will share it.
And on your own, maybe pay a little bit more.
And that would potentially reduce how many cars get parked. So you reduce the number of cars that are parked, so you reduce the number of vehicles that are in London or one of the other major cities. So you can kind of see the advantages of this. Yeah, it is a bus. It's just...
As long as the car doesn't smell, that's all I have to say.
Now, what's interesting...
some sort of air conditioning.
Yeah.
What the filter system.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting, though, is that the other rival reports are coming out saying, look, this is perhaps a bit over-exaggerating the situation. Google, for its own employees, have developed an app to just help them all share rides home. Yeah. This isn't a direct threat to Uber. And indeed...
And we also know that actually Uber are working on driverless cars themselves, right?
Exactly, with Carnegie Mellon. So perhaps we just have to realise that everyone's in each other's game. Everyone is in each other's backyard, because the work has to be done. It's a race. Remember, it's not just Google doing autonomous cars. You've got Tesla thinking about it. You've even got Audi. You've even got Mercedes. Yep. Everyone's trying to push this development. It's a bit like, for me, it's a little bit like Apple Pay versus PayPal versus banks wanting to get in on a digital wallet. Everyone's working with each other and working against each other. It's just so interesting that Google basically has skin in the game whichever way it goes. They're developing autonomous cars their way, but they've also got money bet on Uber if perhaps their one doesn't work out.
Yeah, if Uber keeps them along for the ride.
Yeah, well, if you own the stake, it's quite hard to get rid of them in certain instances.
We'll have to see whether
it depends if you're a regulator.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's insider knowledge. We'll see how it pans out. Caroline, thank you so much. Caroline Hyde there on Uber versus Google.
You can read more about this story, this Bloomberg exclusive. It's on the new. Bloomberg website. Just go to bloomberg.com.